Well, hello and welcome into another edition of 8Sports Nightcap here on WRAC Plus. Thanks so much for tuning in this week. A busy week in the world of sports, right? You think it's Thanksgiving, you just spend some time with your family, but on the contrary, we have rivalry week for football between Virginia Tech and Virginia, and then it's obviously feast week. Virginia wrapped up their play this past weekend at the Greenbrier, while Virginia Tech is down in the Bahamas taking on the battle for Atlanta. So a busy week in the world of sports. Not to mention high school football region championships take place this Friday as well. So busy time of year, but what takes 1A? What's most important, the 106th meeting between Virginia Tech and Virginia. It's the Commonwealth Clash, or rather, it is the Commonwealth Clash, but they're playing for the Commonwealth Cup between Virginia Tech and Virginia. As we all know, history recently bodes on the sides of Virginia Tech. 19 of the last 20 meetings they've taken, and I thought, what better person to bring in than Charlottesville Observer writer Greg Madia. Thanks so much for stopping by to preview the game. Got a busy weekend ahead of us.
Yeah, Nolan, it should be a great game Saturday. A lot on the line, obviously, for UVA. And who would have thought, right at the beginning of the year, that Virginia would have a chance to punch its ticket to Charlotte for the ACC championship game. I mean, they were picked 14th in the ACC preseason poll. The Who's have really had a dream season, but of course, to get there, it's going to run through the Hokies.
Yeah, I was, obviously looking at the history. Everyone in the state knows what it is. But what's interesting, I don't think there's ever been a situation, at least there hasn't been ever a situation where it was Virginia Tech was completely out of bowl consideration. They have really nothing to play for other than, spoiling the UVA season. And because they truly can spoil the Virginia Cavaliers season because they have had such a successful season. Their scenario is as simple as anybody's in the ACC. It's win and get in. And you would think, just looking at their records, this is an easy win. They're double-digit favorites, but I think if you ask any Virginia sports fan, they're probably not feeling all that confident or comfortable this Saturday.
No, I mean it's still a rivalry that just hasn't gone Virginia's way, right? Virginia has been, and its fans have been tormented by Virginia Tech over the last 2 decades, to say the least. It's funny, I was talking to James Jackson, Virginia's linebacker, on Tuesday. He's from Pulaski County. That's Tech territory,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Right. But he grew up a Virginia fan, so he's kind of lived through it. He told me in the past that he grew up. His grandfather's a big UVA fan, so they kind of bonded over it, and that's how he became a Virginia fan. But all the kids going to school were Tech fans, and the people in the neighborhood were Tech fans. So he understands and he's lived it, and then he's played in a couple of them, and none of them has gone Virginia's way. Now he wants to get one for the Who's and help them continue, the magical campaign that it's been for them. But yeah, Virginia fans, they know what's on the line, and they also know the enemy. Even though Virginia Tech is a program in transition right now, right? It's an
Yep.
interim coach in Philip Montgomery, and the most exciting thing that happened in Blacksburg over the last 2 months was the hiring of James Franklin
Yeah,
last
last
week.
6 years, probably.
But it's still a dangerous team, and I think that's something that from talking to UVA players and coaches, Nolan, is like Virginia Tech still has some good personnel.
Yeah.
They still see, because a lot of these kids were recruited by both schools. They know how good some of these players are down in Blacksburg, and how many of these kids are very good players and probably playing with something to prove, rather whether it's to perform for James Franklin, show him some tape to say, I'd like to stay, or to get some tape and say, what, I'm going to go see what's on the open market. So I think there's some respect going on in Charlottesville for what Virginia Tech has done in the rivalry over the last 2 decades, of course, but also what Virginia Tech has on their roster. It's still a decent roster.
Yeah, I think it's one thing that's been remarkable about the Hokies this year is they haven't given up, and it's obvious even in their loss to Miami, where they were just outmatched. They didn't have the depth, didn't quite have the talent to compete with Miami. It was clear that this wasn't a team that had given up on the season, despite the fact that they can't play for a bowl game anymore, despite the fact that everyone seems to be looking forward to next season when there's still a game left. But I think what's interesting about this matchup, Tony Elliott has done such an incredible job of turning things around in Charlottesville. And you brought up the preseason ranked 14th. I remember at media days, almost how offended Coach Elliott was about talking about that they're here to compete for a championship. And media, me included, was surprised that they had such lofty goals after, only winning a handful of games a year ago. But here we are. And not only do they have an opportunity to change history and compete for an ACC championship for just the second time since they went to the championship game format, but they also have an opportunity to change history and win a game against their biggest rival, something that they failed to do for the past 2 decades. And I think what Tony Elliott has been able to do has just been remarkable, and I think a large part of the reason is that roster. And with that, how are the Who's looking in terms of injuries? I know yesterday, head coach Tony Elliott announced that Cam Robinson will be out with an ACL. Is Chandler Moore, is he back to full health? How's the team looking in terms of their depth and their key positions?
Yeah, the loss of Cam Robinson is a big one, right, Nolan? I mean, he was hurt to start the year with the collarbone injury, missed the first 3 games, but played himself over the next 7 into an ACC Defensive Player of the Year candidate. In my opinion, he had 2 pick sixes that helped them win at Louisville, and of course, it sealed the win at Cal. He had the tackle for a safety, for a game-winning safety against Washington State. 64 tackles all over the field. I think he was the first player in the country in the last 20 years to record an interception return for a touchdown, a fumble recovery, and a block punt in the same season. So he was really impacting the game. And I'm curious, with Robinson out and Virginia Tech running the football a little bit better here as of late, right? Hokies are
Yeah,
averaging
they've looked good.
238 on the ground over their last 4 games. Like, how does that defense look without Robinson? I know Landon Danley has played in his place before, but to me, this is a little step up in run defense that Virginia's going to have to answer the bell. Wouldn't be surprised to see Maddox Marcellus out there a little bit more, and even Caleb Hardy. He's played in some situations against opponents' run offenses that he's been okay. Of course, they're going to lean on James Jackson, the veteran linebacker, who's been around, as I mentioned, for quite a while. And then I think Morris is fine. He's good to go. Had a big bounce back, to show everybody he's good. And when UVA won at Duke a couple of weeks ago, he was excellent in that game. I think he had a fourth quarter interception that was a little bit sloppy. The Duke returned for a touchdown, but he played really well in that game. Threw for 2 touchdowns. Really efficient. One to Sage Ennis, one to Trell Harris. I think Virginia feels good about where its offense is heading into Saturday.
One thing when looking at UVA this season and the amount of work they've done, what's been remarkable is how good they've been in close games, one-score games. I mean, you brought up the safety against Washington State, and then you bring up 3 overtimes games. I mean, Virginia could easily be in a situation where they're 5-6 entering this week, but I don't know if it's coaching or what it's been. They've just been able to find a way to finish with more points than the other team. What's it been like this season that you think that maybe they've been able to find a way to win games and be in a situation where they're playing for a playoff berth now instead of a bowl game?
Yeah, it's wild how dramatic some of these victories have been for Virginia to win at Louisville in overtime in walk-off fashion. Right after, that was the week after they had, beaten Florida State in double overtime. And that's when the team started to, I think, really get a sense of what it could accomplish, right? When Virginia beat Florida State, FSU was ranked 8th nationally.
Yep.
When they went on the road to Louisville had been previously unbeaten. I know Louisville sputtered since then, but they've had injury to the quarterback, 2 running backs, and it just feels like a lot of different key personnel pieces. So I think for me, it's that kind of started the belief, and I think with the veteran and older experienced roster that Virginia put together, and this is a credit to Tony Elliott, and of course the recruiting staff too, Justin Sparrows and Tyler Jones. Those guys, they went after experienced players who'd been there before. Mitchell Melton was at Ohio State last year, won a national championship. Chandler Moores had been at Oklahoma, been at TCU, been at North Texas, has played a lot of football. The old linemen on the roster, they've been at UVA for a long time. Mikhail Boley, Noah Josie, and then the center, Brady Wilson, has played a lot of football, coming in from UAB. Like, to me, they just had a lot of guys who've been there before. And in those moments where the games can get tight, and pressure can rise, they've been able to overcome it because they haven't. I mean, I know it's kind of cliche. They just haven't flinched in those moments. They've had playmakers step up and make plays, and that's something Virginia struggled with the last couple of years. Right? How many close games has Tony Elliott lost? Had Tony Elliott lost coming into
Yep.
this year? It's kind of been a reverse of that, and I think a little bit better talent, of course, much improved depth, particularly on a defensive line, at running back, in the defensive backfield. I think it's helped them immensely. And then they just, Morris is just a competent quarterback, right? Like, he rarely makes the wrong choice. Yeah, he throws some interceptions, but he's going to set you up for success in the run game. He's typically going to make the throw after going through his progressions or finding the first open guy. Like, to me, he understands what it takes to win at that position. And I don't know if they've had that since Brennan Armstrong when he was rolling, in what, 2021.
The past couple of weeks, at times the offense has looked really sluggish for UVA, but made a big statement this past week. Obviously they had the bye week this past week, but against Duke, putting 34 up on them. Obviously they had that surprising loss to Wake Forest, 16-9 at home. Do you think the Cavaliers have found something with their offense? I know we only had 1 week of work since that Wake Forest game, but how was that response following a disappointing and surprising loss to the Demon Deacons?
Yeah, I think there were some weeks there, maybe even before the
Yeah.
Cal game, where
North Carolina was sluggish
yeah,
as well.
it was not great, and they were dealing with some injuries to key players. Like, Cam Ross didn't play after he had been hit hard. I think that was can't remember if that was the Washington State game. He got hit hard, or the Carolina game, but he hadn't played the following week, and it was like they were trying to adjust. Xavier Brown had just suffered his season-ending injury. The OC, Des Kitchings, had even talked about it a little bit, how they were trying to figure out what it was going to look like without those guys. And I think a little bit more commitment to the running game. Jamari Taylor, he's closing in on 1,000 yards. They've gone hard and heavy with him. I think his workload has really been impressive, and how he's been able to withstand through it. I think they found something with Whaley, and working him in against Duke. Like, to me, Taylor is at his best when he's fresh in the fourth quarter. And they kind of distributed the reps a little bit more evenly in the Duke game between Taylor and Whaley. And I thought that helped Taylor big time. He rips off the 78-yard run for a touchdown late in that game. And I'm like, man, he's still going. His legs are still fresh. Whereas in some previous weeks, it had been so much Jamari Taylor that you didn't really see the full burst there in the second halves of games at times. And I think that's been a big help to the Hoos. Morris being healthy, right? That was a big part of the Wake game. They weren't good on offense before Morris exited with an injury, right? He got hit hard in that game. But after that, it just didn't look good offensively. You gotta have number 4 behind center if you're Virginia. So to me, that's kind of what I would chalk it up to. And the O line just wasn't getting a push. I don't know what was going on with the O line. They took their couple weeks of maybe some lumps, but they were really good against Duke, and that's a decent Duke defensive front.
Yeah, now they face off against Virginia Tech with a little bit of rest. Obviously, you write for the Charlottesville newspaper, not probably as in on the X and O as the Hokies, but this season, obviously after 3 games, they fire Brent Pry. Philip Montgomery has taken over. The Hokies surprised some teams with a couple of big wins, took down NC State, who obviously beat Virginia Tech. Obviously got a big win against Cal as well as Wofford, as we're seeing the highlights right now. what has impressed you from the Hokies in this stretch where they've had, I think it was 6 or 7 starters enter the portal and not finish out the season, and then obviously an interim staff?
Yeah, I think it's just a number of different running backs they can throw at you. In addition to like Philip Montgomery's willingness to run Kyron Jones until somebody proves they can stop it,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's the big deal for Virginia because Nolan, you look back at the last 2 years, and I know Virginia's roster has changed dramatically since the last 2 seasons when the Hokies blew out the Who's in Charlottesville 2 years ago, and then last year in Blacksburg. Like Virginia didn't tackle the quarterback well in either game. Kyron Jones in 2 years ago was really, really good against Virginia. Pop Watson last year, same thing. And the quarterback run game really hurt Virginia. So I think that is kind of etched into the coaching staff that's been at UVA, and also the players who returned, James Jackson, Jameer Carter, Antonio Clary, those guys who've been around and had seen what happened over the last couple of years. So I think priority one for Virginia is to make sure you tackle and bring down Kyron Jones, because if he gets going downhill and starts gaining some confidence, that's when, to me, that Tech offense can get going. And that's a problem, right? You don't want a situation, and saw it a couple weeks ago against Wake Forest. Robbie Ashford and the Demon Deacons, they kept running the quarterback. They kept running the quarterback over and over, and Virginia just, they weren't giving up long plays, or they didn't give up a touchdown in that game defensively, but it kept the clock moving, and that wasn't good. And I think Drones is much better, as a much better player than Ashford is. It's just a matter if Tech's O-line can protect them in the passing situations. So to me, I think that's a big deal. I really like what I saw from the freshman Overton in the Miami game. Man, he flashed some
Oh
potential
yeah.
there. Hawkins is a good running back. So I think Virginia, it's going to be first and foremost stop the run, and then they'll probably live with what they get on the perimeter because their defensive backs have been very, very good this season. Jason Prevard has 3 interceptions. They've counted on Donovan Platt, a transfer from Army, at one of the corner spots, while Jordan Robinson and Emmanuel Carnley have kind of shared time at the other. So I think first and foremost for Virginia, they probably feel like if they can stop drones on the ground and the Tech running game, they'll be all right in this one.
Yeah, you mentioned Drone's running ability, and that's really where the offense does well. They look to him often, especially on third down scenarios. It's going to be a
Yeah,
quarterback draw, and the issue with Drones is when you make contact with him, he falls forward for 2 yards every
he's so
single time.
big.
Yeah, he's
He's
a
so
tough guy to
big.
bring down. Late in
Yeah,
that Miami game, though, they did bring in Pop Watson. I think he
yeah.
had a rushing touchdown, threw a nice ball down the sideline as well. It'll be interesting to see if Montgomery goes to him sooner or if he goes to him at all. I know there's been some pressure from the fan base that wants to see Watson, because really the only time they've seen Watson play is against Virginia last year, and he got a big win. And so I know the fans have been clamoring to see if he has any talent, because obviously they're looking towards the future with this guy right here, James Franklin, who made his first appearance at Miami. But it's also a scenario as Philip Montgomery would like to go out on top. And if he thinks Kyron Drones the best quarterback, he's going to play the best quarterback, because he probably will not be on staff next year at Virginia Tech. Speaking about this guy, James Franklin, on the sidelines of Miami, the biggest story in the state this past week, announced as the next head coach of Virginia Tech. And when hearing the stories about it, it sounds like it's a place that he wants to be. It sounds like a place Virginia Tech wants him to be. And it seems like a perfect marriage right now. What does that do to the state of Virginia in terms of recruiting? But also, what I think it does is elevate the conference. And I think it might make everybody better, despite the fact that maybe Virginia Tech puts a better product on the field if you're looking at it from a UVA slant.
Yeah, I think as far as the ACC goes, it's another credible coaching hire, right? I mean, the last couple off seasons, you've had a few of those, and this one certainly stacks up in that department. You couple it with SMU, keeping Rhett Lashley in place. You really have some very good coaches in this ACC, and to me, I think from a UVA perspective, what's interesting is, at Penn State, James Franklin went into Virginia quite a bit,
Oh yeah.
particularly the 757, right? And pulled kids up to Penn State and did a really good job of it. I think Virginia, really the last year or two, has done a nice job of getting into
Yep.
Richmond. Keith Gaither, the running backs coach, and Kevin Downing, the defensive tackles coach. It seems like to me they have some great relationships with the high school coaches in Richmond, and that's a major plus for UVA. Of course, they got a couple of commits from in-state that'll sign next week. Of course, on National Signing Day, that's thrown in too. But I think Virginia's reputation in the state is a good one, and it took time, right? Tony Elliott got to Virginia. The first thing he did was, he went to the coaching clinic where all the state's high school coaches gather. And talked with them, and it feels like they've tried to outreach ever since then with coaches in Richmond and the Tidewater area, and of course Northern Virginia. And I think it's starting to pay off, like that early work, because there was a lot of work to be done after Bronco Mendenhall had stepped down.
Yep.
So it's still a work in progress, but with what Gaither and Downing, they've done a lot of the heavy lifting. To me, with what those two guys have done, it's positioned Virginia well, particularly if they can not only win Saturday, but win the ACC championship, maybe go to the playoff. Like, that's only going to help you. So I think this is a major step in the right direction already. They're at 9 wins. If they get to 10, that's great too. And anything else beyond that is just a major help, especially at a time like you said, James Franklin's coming in. And he's got a good reputation in Virginia.
My favorite part about this conversation is the fact that you're not a coach, which means that you will answer some of these questions about the ACC championship. Obviously, the Cavaliers have to get past Virginia Tech. They're double-digit favorites. It is Virginia Tech. It's not going to be an easy game. I won't put you on the spot to pick a winner in that one, but I will like to hear your thoughts on potential matchups for the ACC championship. The scenarios are pretty easy for two teams. Virginia gets in with the win over Virginia Tech. SMU gets in with their win over, who is it? I'm sure you know.
Cal. They're at
Cal.
Cal. Yep.
Other teams in that scenario, if SMU loses, Pittsburgh gets in with a win, and then surprisingly, Duke with 5 losses. If they can win and SMU and Pittsburgh loses, they would get into the matchup. Between SMU, Pittsburgh, and Duke, what do you think Tony Elliott would like to see on the other side of the field in Charlotte next Saturday?
I think SMU is going to be there, regardless of who Virginia might want to see if UVA can beat the Hokies. I'm pretty confident SMU is going to go to Berkeley and beat Cal, right? Cal just fired Justin Wilcox,
Yep.
The head coach who'd been there a long time. They're playing really good ball, SMU. I was looking at it the other day. Under Rhett Lashley, Nolan, in November's SMU is 15-1. They just keep getting better as the seasons go along. And to me, that's the mark of a good program that understands where they are. Right? They just are good this time of year, and it's helped them in their transition. Right? Obviously, played for the league title last year, so they're not new to it this season. I think they'll go to Berkeley and handle business. I'd be very surprised if they lose, especially after Cal fired Wilcox. After that, if somehow they do. I think Virginia'd be happy to see Duke again. I think that's for sure after they blasted Duke last week. But I don't know. I just have a feeling SMU is going to be there, and it'll be a matter of if Virginia can beat Virginia Tech if they're there too.
Looking at the ACC standings, the biggest red flag, obviously, we've known this now since they expanded the conference, but with so many teams and not having divisions, it's just such a cluster that it's impossible to figure out the perfect scheduling to make it so it's the best ACC championship. If Pittsburgh, SMU, and Virginia all win, it's a tiebreaker for who gets in and who gets out, and that's a problem. And with teams not facing off against one another, did Pittsburgh face SMU?
Pitt and SMU did
No, they
not
did
play.
not play. So it's, their situation where it's three teams with 9-1 and Pittsburgh gets the cold shoulder in that scenario. What do you think happens in the future? Do you think going back to divisions would be the right answer? Obviously, that would be a situation where you would never play the other division. But in the current situation, the fact that even Duke could get in with their 5 losses is a problem in itself.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it. The league is going to 9 conference games next year, right? Remember, they're going to 9 conference games next year, the ACC. But still, right, there are other conferences that play 9 league games already, and they still have some of the same problems, right? The Big Ten this year, right? Indiana and Ohio State didn't play in a regular season, don't play in a regular season. That that's a big deal. Where you got the 2 top teams in the country, and they in the same league, and they haven't played against each other. They'll probably see each other in a Big Ten title game, but still, to get there, it's not really not really a factor. So to me, that's just college football's problems, and probably one of the unintended consequences of all this conference realignment is these bloated conferences. I don't see how it changes. I mean, unless they're going to get creative, right? In the summer, you heard some ideas and hypothesis put out there that maybe some leagues will just put its top place finisher and then maybe its highest ranked CFP team in the conference title game, kind of convoluted, or just let the winner skip let the regular season winner skip the conference title game and you play it between like your second and third place team. I don't know how they're going to do it. To me, it's weird that, like, think about this year and the teams in contention. Like, Virginia didn't play SMU, Virginia didn't play Pittsburgh, Virginia did not play Georgia Tech. All right, Georgia Tech was in it basically up until this past week. Virginia did not play Miami. So it's a weird thing. And the way it worked out, they got fortunate. But going into the year, you thought, like, they've got FSU on the schedule, they've got Louisville on the schedule, they got a trip to Cal. Like, there were a couple things there where you're like, this is still a tricky schedule, but it just worked out that the teams that are in it at the end, hadn't played.
Perfect. Well, we're looking forward to maybe a trip to Charlotte for the Virginia Cavaliers. The only thing standing in their way, their biggest thorn in their side the past 2 decades, the Virginia Tech Hokies, the 106th playing of the Commonwealth Cup this upcoming Saturday. Greg, thanks so much for stopping by. Where can our viewers find your work?
dailyprogress.com, or you can find it on my Twitter at Greg Madia.
Daily Progress. I shouted out the wrong newspaper earlier. I completely
okay.
apologize.
I'm not offended. And in your area, of course, all the work's in the Richmond Times-Dispatch too.
Yeah, perfect. All right, thanks so much, Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Nolan.
Yeah, have a good one.